Let's talk about 54 balls because that's about the amount of balls that I think this entire game changed in today. There was a point where Mohammad Siraj had bowled a maiden at the end of the 29th over, or the 30th over. He bowled a maiden. And at that point, India were just doing really well. I think England were 78 for 5, and India were massively on top. And when you haven't made many runs, you don't get chances to be massively on top. Sure, one of the wickets was a night watchman, but also Jarrod was out. Like, India were completely in the game at that point. And then a lot went wrong right after that. And eventually, England would end up with a 99-run lead. It all started with the Shardul Thakur over, which was remarkable. He bowled a couple of dot balls to start with, and then he bowled half volleys, balls down leg side, half volleys that were kind of down the leg side, and eventually Ollie Pope just smacked him for a boundary at the end. It was an extraordinary period where there were 4 boundaries. One was given leg byes, although I think there was runs in that, but essentially 4 straight boundaries, 16 runs in 4 balls in a low-scoring game, which was just, it came from nowhere. And it was so momentum changing. Up until that point, Pope hadn't really looked like scoring that many runs. He was batting okay, but he was a little bit scratchy. Not terrible, just not extraordinary. He hit 1 boundary at that point, and it was off Jasprit Bumrah. And it was a hook shot, and it wasn't a good hook shot. And it was a top edge. It could have been caught. It happened to go to the boundary. And in that 5-over spell, Bumrah only went for 6 runs, and 4 of them were from that mistake of a hook shot. Pope wasn't doing well. Suddenly, he was absolutely flying after Shardul's over. The next over, Mohammad Siraj is bowling. He's following up his maiden. And he bowls a couple of balls that go for 4 that aren't actually that bad. One was an edge from Bairstow that went through the slips. And another one was this weird sort of scoopy, weedy thing on the leg side where he could have been caught. A more athletic fielder might have actually caught that. But then there was another boundary as well, which was not as good a ball. Over the last 2 overs, there had been 28 runs. Shardul bowled another over. It was at this point that India quite rightfully started to worry a little bit. Shardul actually got another over, but then Siraj was replaced by Umesh Yadav, who had to start bowling. And then, of course, Jarrod came on and assaulted Johnny Bairstow. That seemed to put Umesh off, who was trying, I think, to bowl some Yorkers, but instead bowled a couple of half volleys. So his over went for 10 runs as well. Shardul kept bowling, but Umesh went for another 7 runs in his over, and then he was taken off. And Ravi Jadeja then came on to bowl. Shardul was, at this stage, completely in control of his bowling and was bowling a lot better and was only going for 1s in his over, but he was taken off probably because his spell was now so long, which meant that Bumrah had to come on. And of course, for Bumrah and Umesh, probably both bowling completely out of when they did not expect to be bowling at that point. They were probably only bowling because of the panic that was going on with India, and both of them weren't quite at the top of their game when they bowled. Umesh's 2 overs went for 17. Bumrah just had 1 boundary, but it didn't look like India were quite on top of it. Now, in this 9-over spell, they went for 55 runs. 42% of the runs that England had made came from only 21% of the balls they had faced. It was a remarkable period where Kohli tried all 5 of his frontline bowlers, where he rotated people, where he put faith in Thakur but not put faith in Siraj, where he tried his spinner, where he tried his gun bowler, where he tried his guy that he picked for this particular team. But that was the moment, because after lunch, even though India bowled much better after lunch, they had an hour before lunch where they were completely on top of England, where they had them 5 wickets down, where Joe Root was nowhere to be found, when India could have really pushed ahead and even got a lead. Forget about a lead. In the end, they ended up 99 runs behind. And it was partly because the pitch and the ball flattened out a little bit after lunch. But it was really that hour where they had their chance. It was horrendous. But here's the thing. Looking back at it, yeah, Thakur bowled a bunch of bad balls. But you wouldn't think that that would have opened the floodgates the way that it actually did. And sure, Siraj bowled 1 bad over, but he never even got a chance to come back at it. And his over previously had been a maiden. And even in that 1 bad over where he went for 12 runs, 2 of those boundaries were mistakes by Johnny Bairstow. Umesh Yadav came on, probably wasn't expecting to bowl, as I said, had a streaker / Jarvo come in and completely ruin what he was doing. Maybe he still would have gone for those boundaries, but he was going for Yorkers. And sometimes when you go for Yorkers, you just miss your length a little bit. And Bumrah coming on for his over, he let go of boundary. That was just unfortunate at that point. It was only Jadeja who didn't go for any boundaries. And let's look at what Virat Kohli did. Well, of course he would panic. It's a low-scoring game. He tried all 5 of his frontline bowlers because it wasn't working. I'm not sure that India did anything massively wrong here. It's just that sometimes, in a small period of time, a bunch of things can go against you. It would have been just as easy for Bairstow to get an edge after Thakur's over, and none of this, we wouldn't even be talking about this, and potentially India would now be having a lead. India can still fight back, but it is phenomenal to think about what happened. 55 runs, 54 balls, 5 bowlers, 0 wickets, and the other team ends up with a 99-run lead. Sometimes, I suppose, these things just happen.